Captain Kalani is an 8-bit action platformer currently sitting at 2 Steam reviews. Does this deserve more attention, or is it better off left to obscurity? The game starts off with an opening cutscene where you have to go to a factory and blow something up. I don't know. I accidentally hit the wrong button and skipped the cutscene, but it doesn't really matter. You don't play a game like this for a story. As soon as the game starts, you're right into the action, and I was really pleasantly surprised by how fast your character moved. Control was responsive, and your character kind of reminds me of the guy from Vice Project Doom. He even has that little ducking run from that game. You get a double jump powered by your jetpack, which produces this cool little rainbow effect. The shooting, though, is pretty horrific. It had this weird delay where your character has to pick up the gun before he shoots, making each shot come out really slow. You also only have 6 shots and then you have to reload. The reloading is weird. At first I thought it was automatic, but I think you have to hit the shoot button and then like a second or two later you'll have all your bullets back. It takes some getting used to, but I guess this is by design. It almost feels like the game is going for a flashback or out of this world vibe, so the combat is a little slower and more deliberate, despite how fast your character moves. The enemies all move pretty quick also, and it's usually easy enough to dodge and jump over your enemies as you pluck in your shots. You can aim in 8 directions, but the delay on the diagonal shot is so great that it is virtually useless. I couldn't hit anything by aiming diagonally. So you start the first level, running through, fighting robots, jumping over some pits. The combat just feels clunkier and slower than it needs to. Between the delay in your shots, your limited ammunition, and the pretty long reload times, I just felt like I was standing around more than I needed to be standing around, and it really hurt the pacing of the game. To make matters worse, most enemies have this really long death animation where they run at you flashing and then self-destruct. These explosions damage you, so every time you kill an enemy, you have to back off, wait for them to explode before proceeding. It is just so tedious and gets worse and worse as the game goes on, as these sequences tend to be longer and the enemies are more frequent. As the level progresses, you run into some more obstacles. You get some staples like shooting flames and conveyor belts. It's all done well enough, but then you run into these disappearing blocks, which are just done terribly. I know we all hate them in Mega Man, but you gotta give them credit. They have a nice rhythm to them, and the sound effects kind of help you time your jumps. Here, there are no sound effects, no visual cues. They just come and go, and their patterns don't really make any sense. Luckily, these were not over bottomless death beats, so the stakes were pretty low, and it was just a minor annoyance. You also fight a whole bunch of bosses, which normally I like, but these were just terrible. The first mini-boss was a robot, who just shoots at you and dashes towards you. He eventually stops shooting altogether and just starts jumping around. Easy enough and really boring. Then you fight a door, who you can beat by just standing in one spot and shooting over and over again, and pretty much nothing is going to hit you. I think this fight dragged on way longer than it should have, and I almost fell asleep fighting this door. You then fight some reactors. You can just stand under them and shoot them safely. There's not much challenge, but they're on different levels. You have to traverse those annoying platforms that we talked about before. The end of level boss is a robot with the most brain dead pattern I've ever seen. He slowly shoots you. You could just duck and you're totally safe. He then flies over you and lands with a thud. Once you figure this out, which should take you about 2 seconds, it's basically impossible to get hit. It did take me a few minutes to learn how to damage him. You have to shoot him in his tiny robot dick when he flies above you, and I'm being serious. The hitbox on this thing is so tiny, and in order to do damage, you have to hit it directly between the legs when he is above you. Given how slow your shots are, along with the weird delay, this is a lot harder than when you think. The good news is he is so mind-numbingly easy that there's no way you're gonna die. It just takes much longer than it should have to beat him. I just wish he was a lot harder. Not only would the fight have been more interesting, but his hitbox would have grown as well, making the whole thing take much less time. So after castrating him, you go on to level 2. As soon as the level starts, you get a new gun, which you can change with the Q button on the keyboard. However, for some reason, there's no controller prompt to change buttons. I was playing on my laptop, so it wasn't that big of a deal, but if you were playing on something like the Steam Deck, it would just be super annoying. I don't understand why this wasn't mapped to a controller button. The new weapon has the same weird delay, but you don't have to reload and it is much faster, but also weaker. I don't see any reason to use the other gun. Despite the difference in strength, the speed difference is so vast, you're just much better off with this new weapon. You then enter a building with a bunch of doors. You enter them, you fight a few baddies, and you work your way to the top of the building. Each time you enter and exit a room, all the enemies respawn, making this level just a chore. You have to make sure you clear out every room. I made it to the top of the building and I was just stuck. I had no idea what to do. I missed a room when the level started, so I had to go back all the way down, clear out the enemies, kill everyone again, and make my way to the top. It was just such a tedious level. You then fight this little green robot who's simple enough. Get used to his pattern, because you're going to fight the exact same enemy with the exact same pattern several more times before this level ends. Luckily, like the first level, he's really easy. You jump over him, he shoots at you, but you can easily jump over them, and then he flies at you. You jump over that, you get your shots when you can, and he goes down quick enough. You beat him, and you're onto the world's slowest shmup section. Your ship just plods along, you fight a bunch of really easy enemies. You shoot slow, they shoot slow, and in the end you fight a boss who's simple enough. After beating this section, my game crashed. I was just stuck, no character to control, he just went away. I thought about going away too, but I was stuck reviewing this game, so it is what it is. I hit every button, I waited a few seconds, nothing. I exited the game, reloaded my save, and then everything worked, but I was down a life, and that was super annoying. The rest of the level kind of proceeds. You're going down this building. This time you kill all the enemies, and you fight the Green Ranger a few times. Before you know it, it's over. This level is definitely worse than the first one. It was just so redundant, and there weren't really any interesting platforming challenges to take on. Level 3 has you losing your jetpack, meaning you can no longer double jump. You just get one regular jump. Great, you take the one semi-interesting thing about this game out of it. The level does not start off great either. You are descending down this construction site, but you can never see where you're going, so it's all just blindly leaping down, and I eventually blind leapt my way into a pit a few times until I figured out where to go. Super annoying. You then fight the world's easiest boss. He's a punk rocker with a machine gun. He stands there and shoots at you. You duck and shoot back, and he's dead before you know it without you even taking a scratch. I have to say, the rest of the level is actually pretty fun. You ride this speeder bike that has you moving up and down in the foreground and background, and I thought that effect was really cool. You can shoot forward and backwards. You picture the controls from Double Dragon 2 onto a shooter, and that's kind of how it works. I thought that was a really good touch, and I'm surprised more games don't do that. You then fight Tiny Dick Robot again, only this time there's two of them. But you don't have to shoot him in the nuts, you can shoot him anywhere, thank God. It's the same pattern as before, and having two of them doesn't make it much more difficult. The rest of the level is well designed. You run into these platforms from the NES Batman game, and if you stand on them too long, they shoot fire at you, so you gotta move quick. I enjoyed this section of the game actually, and after running through a few screens, you get to the boss of the level. He is a massive robot with a chain gun that shoots in all directions. Lucky for you, you can just stand in the starting spot and shoot him until he dies. He does walk at you once, and I have no idea how you're supposed to avoid this, so you'll take a little damage, but it's totally irrelevant. He's dead by the time he walks back to his starting position. On to stage 4. You now lose your shield as well as access to the shops, but I'm pretty sure the latter is actually a bug, not a design choice. You see, there are still shops sprinkled throughout the level, and you can enter them, but you can't buy anything. At first this was really disheartening, as the shops were sprinkled around where you could buy extra health and lives, but the absence of these shops taught me that you actually have unlimited lives. I mean, sure, there's a life counter, but when you die your last life, it just resets back up to 3, making it a totally meaningless gameplay element. Outside of that, stage 4 is a lot more descending into blind jumps. This one section here, I just fell to the bottom and prayed. It kind of reminded me of the rat race from Battletoads, only shitty, and with no tension other than hoping there wasn't a pit waiting for me at the bottom. There's also the worst vehicle section in the game on this stage. You drive around a hover bike, but you don't really know which walls are going to damage you and which don't. You have buttons that shoot, but the rate of fire is so ludicrously slow, it may as well not even be there. I literally couldn't kill a single enemy on this part and just had to dodge them. It's pretty dull, but there's no boss at the end. Later in the level, you fight the same boss from the first shmup level, only this time he's on foot. He's as easy as he was the first time. You go on to kill a couple more enemies in the world's most boring train stage. Seriously, you just run and keep shooting. There's no tension or challenge or anything to this part. It's just really badly designed. And the level ends with one of the more interesting bosses in the game, but still not great by other game standards. But at least this one requires you to move and dodge a few attacks, so I guess that's something. He blows up and someone comes to rescue you in their car. Who is it? I have no idea. There are a whole bunch of cutscenes in this game, and I really don't get what's going on. Characters just kind of appear. There's some random dialogue, nothing really makes sense. But whatever. On stage 5, we're on to stage 5, which is the game's final level. The good news is the shops work again. I think I figured out that the shops were never broken in the first place on this level. You see, in the beginning of the game, your default life bar is about 5 blocks long. Once you lose your shield, your life bar extends. I learned on this level I could use the shops to get my health back, but only up to the default 5 bars. So it's like the game doesn't register you have a longer health bar. For the last level, it's just more of the same. You run through some environments, you fight a bunch of tedious enemies that take way too many hits to kill and wait way too long to die. And you fight a few more bosses, an alien robot, and finally the final boss. I want to take a minute to just say, I give the game some credit for having so many boss battles, but at the same time, how could a game have this many boss battles and all of them suck? I think at most it was one okay boss in the entire game. So I'm staring down the final boss. I just figured, you know what, I'm going to stand in one spot and just shoot and see what happens. Well, that was good enough to win. You don't need to learn this pattern, dodge, or anything else. You just stand under it and shoot it till it dies. You just have to wait to get out of the way of the explosion when you kill it, because that will kill you resetting the fight. After defeating the final boss, a cutscene triggers the main character saying, well, that was anticlimactic, and that is most definitely true. I really wanted to like this game. I love indie games. I love action platformers, and I love a good 8-bit aesthetic, but this game is just so ridiculously flawed. I won't comment on the hokey story because I don't play games like this for a story, but the combat is just so slow and tedious. The shooting is slow. Having to wait for every enemy to self-destruct before you could proceed is unbelievably monotonous. The vehicle sections are cool in theory, but almost all of them fail in execution, and the boss battles are just terrible and can be beaten by just mashing the fire button with no strategy for the most part. The only exception to this rule is the tiny dick robot, but that fight is so boring I almost wish I could just mash my way through it. Even the weapon selection doesn't make sense. You start the game with a 6-shot pistol. You get an unlimited gun on level 2 and never get any other weapons. But also, the second gun is so much better than the first, there's no point in ever using the first again, begging the question, why even have a weapon select button? And if you're going to, why not map it on the controller? This game retails full price for $4 and took me a little over an hour and a half to beat. As much as I don't want to like this game, I just can't recommend it. Its flaws are too big to ignore, and there are just much better retro-style games to be playing at this price point.